Did you do this?
Brian Little.
Japan.
Hey everyone, it's Pastor Robbie. I'm back with another Sunday video, and that means we're going to be digging into a piece of scripture and trying to figure out what that means for us today. And today we're getting into one of the kind of most interesting shifts in attitude that you will ever read in scripture. You know, after seeing so much goodness, so much miraculous power, you would think that the Israelites would never turn away from God. And in this passage, we learn that that's not true. But before we get into that, if you like these types of explorations of Scripture and you are interested in learning how to discern the Word of the Lord, then I would suggest that you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hitting the subscribe button as well as the little bell icon, that means that you will be notified as soon as new videos are posted here. Okay. The last couple weeks, we've been working our way through the story of the Exodus, and we've either hit or we've been just adjacent to huge stories of God's power. We talked about Moses hearing the voice of the Father in the burning bush. We talked about the people becoming the people of God as they observed the first Passover. That story was just adjacent to the 10 plagues that eventually saw the people released from their captivity. And then last week, we talked about the people crossing the Red Sea and finally becoming firmly established as the obedient people of Yahweh. Them for God and God for them. This week, this week we move right on into the grumbling. And it's not like we've jumped way far into the story, like years have passed and now they're grumbling. Like they're still on the first leg of their journey and they're grumbling, right? They're on their way to go worship the Lord from Egypt. And they're already doing this. It's a pretty surprising thing when you read it, but we need to jump into the context a little bit to understand why this might be appropriate. Maybe appropriate's not the right word, but even though it's right, I don't know. It's not as surprising as it should be. The passage from the lectionary, if you'd like to, go read it. It comes from the 16th chapter of the book of Exodus, and it's found in verses 2 through 15. If you'd like to, pause the video, go read it, think about it for a little bit, and then come back, right? Go ahead and do that now if you need to. If you've already read the passage, then you're ready to move forward, then let's just jump into it. So last week, we were with the Israelites as they walked through the Red Sea. Wind blowing, wow, crazy scene. Holding up the waters as they passed through on dry ground, right? The pursuers, they came close, but ultimately they were drowned when the waters came crashing back down and they were caught in the middle. It's a high holy moment because it's the moment when the Lord declares in the form of action, look at what I've done for these people, right? It's a moment of identity being established within the people. And it's this moment when the people, they're given a direction for their obedience, right? They should be good for a long while, right? Wrong, right? Starting in verse 2 of this chapter, there's grumbling. They're grumbling against God. They're grumbling against Moses. And most of the time when we read it, can't believe it, right? But today, I'm going to go to bat for them rather than put them down for grumbling, right? I'm not saying that the grumbling was right, but you and I, in the same situation, we would have grumbled too. The context of this grumbling is that they are in the wilderness. They are in a hard place. Now, admittedly, they have just come from a hard place. Really hard. Different kind of hard, though, right? Like they have seen since then the power of the Lord in the form of the plagues and at the Red Sea. But now, like they're walking through the desert and their troubles are different. They're more like acute. In Egypt, their problems are crossing powerful people. The danger of being seen as challenging that power, right? In the wilderness, their problems are real. Their starvation, their dehydration. And already, chapter 15, the Lord has provided the people in their worry for water by making the bitter waters of a place called Marah drinkable. And from there, they make it to this oasis, like this little paradise called Elim, with 12 springs and 70 palm trees. When the people grumble, it's not that they aren't appreciative of the things the Lord has done. Rather, it's what the Lord is now calling them away from. Okay? They have left slavery and they found a small piece of paradise that is comfortable. It's safe, right? The problem is that little oasis that they found, it's not their destination. Like it's just a stop along the way. I want to see if I can try to talk us through this in another way that might help us understand. Anytime I have ever learned something, I loosely went through the following process. It was a process whereby new information came to me and I had that aha moment, recognizing that there was something out there to learn. And that moment was then coupled with an excitement that I could learn something new. That adrenaline-filled moment is then followed up by a hard recognition that to learn that new thing, to move beyond just a knowledge that the topic exists and that I could explore it, right? To move beyond that, I would have to go through a season by which I'm constantly boom, 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 banging my head against the wall of the thing that I don't know yet. That season is filled with constant reminders that there's this topic out there that I haven't yet mastered. And usually that my original aha moment was just the tip of a much larger iceberg. So what I don't know as I explore this topic continues to grow and grow and grow. Right? So here's the real world example. It's these videos, right? When we made the shift of video in March, I did so with a little bit of experience in my back pocket. I had made a video here and there for things like district reports, a few video announcements, but nothing really crazy. Once coronavirus hit and we knew we weren't going to get back into the church building together until we got to the other side, well, it was time for me to dive deep into video production, and that was something that I didn't really know a ton about. So at the outset, I leaned into what I had already learned through previous experience, and I was producing videos that, look at them, right? They reflected the level of knowledge that I possessed at the time. But then, video by video, this season has been this opportunity for me to learn a new skill. And with each video, I tried a little something new and I leaned into that challenge. But as I worked at it, I realized that there was a lot that I still didn't know and that I needed to learn. But eventually, when it comes to learning a new thing, we come to have a little bit of mastery of that topic, right? It's not just through my effort, the things that I do on my own. I have to do some discovery of the topic, which means I'm usually leaning on others who have been through the same season of discovery on the same topic. And they help direct me, maybe they help coach me, right? These directors or these coaches in my life, they have been friends, family members, teachers, professors, pastors right now. A lot of people in YouTube, doing YouTube videos, those kinds of tutorials, those are what are directing me in some of this stuff. But they direct me as I explore the unknown landscape of the topic that I'm learning. So with these videos, I made some changes, right? I made some equipment upgrades. I had to learn how to work on a new editing platform. I had to learn how to light videos. I had to learn how to do sound better. These days, you can find a ton of this stuff online, and so I took a few courses, tried some new things, changed my filming locations a few times, and today, I ended up with Well, I mean, I ended up with this, right? Right? But talk about still feeling like I'm not there. For the majority of the audience, the people who watch these videos, I've probably learned enough that I could talk circles around most of y'all, right? And this isn't to be like, bragging or to like, bring offense to anybody, right? But in the back of my head, there's this voice that reminds me that there's still a lot to learn. And it's because there is. And so as distancing continues for our church, I'm going to keep on with the, online lessons. I'm reaching out to some people who've actually done this stuff, in the real world. Some people who are doing it right now at a much higher level than we're doing it, and continue, right? Like, that's my goal, is to continue to produce these videos at like a slightly higher quality every week until I've developed some level of mastery over the craft. When we eventually break through, when we gain some mastery of our topic, there comes like a second moment of clarity. Now, it's probably not going to be, as big of a moment as that aha moment, right? Like, we're not going to be filled with hope and adrenaline at the outset. But that moment is like, it's like a verification that I now hold a knowledge of something, right? Like, I know what I know. Now, obviously, that's not the end of the line, right? You keep working at that thing until you have a mastery of the topic, but that journey helps us continue to get our whole being over the line from knowing what I didn't know to knowing what I now know, right? So here's the connection. When we learn something new, we go from ignorance to the epiphany that something might be true or there might be something to learn, to this long journey of exploration, to an eventual mastery of that knowledge. That journey of exploration is not fun. It's not a good time. It's not a happy time, right? That's usually the hardest part of learning, because it's a time spent well aware of what you don't know, right? It's like I am conscious of the things that I am not competent in. But it's also a time that's spent going again to that place and then pushing a little further and then pushing a little bit further until you're in a place where you can celebrate the things that you've learned. For the Israelites, Elam feels like that place of the final breakthrough, and I mean, like, you can't blame them for this. It feels good to have a place that feels safe, that feels secure, a place where we can find rest. But Elam is not where they're going. Elam is like this little stop on this longer journey. And as we know, that journey is going to be a long, long time, right? And so when they have to face the difficulty of that journey again, well, the grumbling is pretty natural. And in the same way for all of us, when we're on the way from one thing to the next, when we hit that rough patch, the instinct is to do this. It's to look in the rearview mirror and to say, let's just go back there. At least back there, I knew what was going on. I didn't feel stupid, right? Like, at least back there, I didn't have to suffer in this new way. Literally, for the Israelites, they start longing for the days of slavery in Egypt, when, those days that they're being delivered from. They had to cry out to God, and God had to hear them, right? But at least there, they didn't have to worry about where their food came from, where their water was coming from. And that's our instinct, right? To kind of like, run backwards. But the Israelites reveal to us that the way is not backwards, but it's forward, right? They also reveal to us that the path forward, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a challenge. In my spiritual formation, some of my hardest moments were found in moments where I just had to put my nose down and press through feelings of deep insecurity and anxiety that I would have preferred to have turned and run away from. But had I run, I would not have learned to depend on the Lord in the ways that now kind of seem natural to me. The Israelites also show us another thing, though. They reveal to us that we are going to be whiny, awful, no good, thankless followers through our toughest times. I don't want to say that there are no consequences to that behavior, because obviously, like at the end of this story, right, a generation of Israelites dies in the wilderness because they never learned to trust the Lord. But even in the midst of our worst, most dismissive behavior, the Lord is good to us. This passage is most known for the promise of manna from heaven. Obviously, we're not touching on that very much today, right? But the people were awful. They were complaining, and God could have absolutely rejected them and just left them to die for not honoring him perfectly. And yet, the calling of the Lord was for them to go to a place, right? And the Lord understood that to get to that place, they would need to eat. They would need to drink. And so the Lord provided for them. But the Lord won't make it easy, okay? It's not going to be served up on a silver platter for any of us. And this means that whether we're searching for identity or we're dealing with attacks on our own character or we're just trying to navigate the craziness of the world around us faithfully, we're going to come to moments that are challenging. And the good news is that those challenging moments are the ones that help bring us to a new level or a new place where faith and learning and capacity, these things all grow. The bad news is they can also be places that derail us if we're not focused on the thing that's being taught. And so it's a good reminder that in these moments, they're not always things that we can control, but at times, we're just on the journey learning. When you're on those hard times, right? When you're in the middle of something, it's okay to be stressed out. That's natural. It's probably okay to grumble about it too, a little bit, right? But remember to keep your eyes on the Lord and to remember to continue listening for the voice of the Father. Don't look away. Don't look back. Don't long for the place where you were. If you do that, you're never going to move forward and grow. I love you all. I miss seeing people. I miss hugging people. This is a tough time. But my eyes are on the Lord, and so should yours. Think about checking out last week's video when we saw the people of God claim that identity of the people of God, right? It's good. It's a good thing for us to think about that as we are now seeing them immediately start to grumble against the Lord. The journey that we are on is rarely a journey that goes in a straight line. There are going to be a lot of turns and twists. We're going to fail a little bit. Watch that video, but remember this. Stay safe, stay healthy. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you in the next one.